Well, ladies and gentlemen, we finally passed 1,000%. Let's give a round of applause to Legal Eagle. Congratulations. You are now over 1,000%. A far left, disreputable activist channel that pumps out some of the most ridiculous misinformation and bullshit headlines of anyone else on the internet. You are, at this point, officially, you are the Young Turks tier as it relates to misinformation, being bombastically wrong, and just perpetuating some of the most ridiculous and inane and pathetic talking points and worldviews. So, this video is called Religious Parents Are Special, in quotations, and it's about the Supreme Court. Religious parents are quote unquote special. Oh, I can't wait to show you this video, because there may be some times where you look at my content and you say, maybe he's being a little bit hyperbolic. Oh no, I'm actually pulling it back. I'm being more reserved when I talk about this stuff. These people that are part of the Legal Ego channel have made it their mission to speed run ruining any credibility they may have had. And also, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm considering doing a video that's a montage of all of the lawyers on the LawTube space and really in the online content creator community that hate Legal Eagle and have made fun of them for years. People like Legal Mindset on civil law, people like Nick Rekieta. There are too many even to list. There's Hoag's Law, there's Andrew Bronca. Like, the number of people that either hate Legal Eagle or maybe don't hate him but recognize that he's wrong a lot and so they make fun of him. It is a long list. It would actually take me a long time to compile it. I would have to actually find a way to weed down all of the clips, because if I were to take all of the clips of people shitting on Legal Eagle, it would be hours worth of content. Literal hours worth of content, people shitting on Legal Eagle for his absolutely atrocious takes. In fact, there's a video from Nick Rekieta where he's with a couple other lawyers. They did the LawTube Reacts. And whatever you may think of Nick Rekieta, you had a bunch of different types of lawyers from a bunch of different perspectives and backgrounds. Hoag's Law is definitely not what you would consider to be right wing. You had, what was his name? Good Logic, who's another lawyer from New York. You had Nick Rekieta. There are people who are looking at the Kyle Rittenhouse case that Legal Eagle presented, and yeah, that is a very interesting, very long video that in itself demonstrates that this guy constantly has gotten things wrong for years and tried to misrepresent and lie and exaggerate about this information to mislead people. That's what it is. You are pushing a political ideology, a political narrative. Legal Eagle in that video actually makes the case that Hubert and Grosskreutz and all these other people, you know, I know that it doesn't matter for the court case, but, you know, they're convicted pedophiles and, you know, they're just some of the scum of the earth. But he's going, well, you know, it could be reasonably construed that they could have also killed Rittenhouse and claimed self-defense, which is insane. You know, as Rittenhouse is running away and they're chasing him, this absolute plastic freak is going to try to make the case that they had a legitimate claim to self-defense. No, they are chasing somebody down who is running away. And then they go to attack him. And even then, Kyle Rittenhouse shows amazing heroic restraint. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it. Let's watch this video. Religious parents are special.
On the last day of term, the Supreme Court's 6 conservatives struck a blow for parental rights. No, they're not going to let parents decide health care for their kids. Don't be silly. They're still going to let states ban gender-affirming care for minors, Instead, they've allowed parents to ensure that their children are never exposed to dangerous books like Uncle Bobby's Wedding, Pride Puppy, and My Rainbow.
I think this is fantastic. That is great news. And by the way, you like the way that she frames that? You think I was kidding about the over 1000% a far left radical activist channel? This woman is pushing sexuality to children. Thinks that that's perfectly fine. Kids' books promoting sexuality to kids. Let me just make my opinion on this perfectly clear. This woman and anyone, and I mean anyone, well, doesn't matter gender, doesn't matter race, doesn't matter disability. This woman clearly has a bunch of mental disabilities, and I would have the FBI look at her hard drive. Holy shit. You're promoting sexuality and LGBTQ to kids as though it's normal, as though it's not this pedophilic sex pest crime. This should be a crime. You are introducing sexuality to kids. These are kids' books, children's books. And this person has a problem with religious parents thinking they're special and not wanting their kids exposed to this filth. How insane must you be to think, I'm going to take up the mantle, I'm going to take up the cause, and think that I'm a good person by defending child mutilation, which she just did. She just did. This video that she links to right here.
Gonna let states.
This is Legal Eagle. I reacted to this. This is Legal Eagle, and this is a charitable interpretation. Him not talking really about trans people, but talking about trans youth. And he had a problem with the decision of the Supreme Court. He doesn't think the Supreme Court should be weighing in to limit or stop transing kids. So, giving them irreversible hormone therapy, mutilating their genitals, all of these things that are absolutely evil and barbaric and are the equivalent of the mobile lobotomies in the past. I know that people say that the mobile lobotomies were exaggerated, but the fact is that there were people that were pushing lobotomies as a cure. Oh, your wife, your husband's a little bit crazy? Oh, get a lobotomy. This is the same sort of barbarism. And in the future, people are going to look back at women like this and they're going to be like, oh my God, how did people live back then where there were these crazies who went out there and advocated for mutilating kids, ruining their life? Transitioning is ruining your life. If you're a kid, you don't understand the gravity of this. I guarantee, as messed up as this woman is, if I were to have a conversation with her and go, okay, you think that a child should be able to consent to the sexuality? Do you think that a child can consent to sex? Do you think an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, 10-year-old can consent to having sex? But no, but you should just teach them about it, groom them for it, right? Groom them for it. That is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting and despicable. And these are not high school textbooks. These are children's books, and she is defending it. This is indefensible. And if she or anyone else has a problem with what I'm saying, which is, by the way, this is a 98-2 issue. She is representing the 2% of people that think that it is okay to introduce children to LGBTQ. You have something deeply, profoundly wrong with you if you think that sexualizing kids is okay in any form. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Ban gender-affirming care for minors. Instead, they've allowed parents to ensure that their children are never exposed to dangerous books like Uncle Bobby's Wedding, Pride Puppy, and My Rainbow, because some religions say LGBTQ plus people are bad, and so it's unconstitutional for teachers to, quote, normalize them by reading picture books that show gay people living happy lives where they're loved and accepted by their families.
Well, you like that manipulation? Oh, that's just what they're doing. Well, first of all, I agree with that, even with her ridiculous premise. But, lady, have you read the book Gender Queer? I've seen many different people give many different interviews across a whole broad range of content creators. One of my favorites to talk about this, believe it or not, is Tim Pool. Because Tim Pool is one of the few people that is as outspoken and revolted by this concept as I am. Tim Pool actually bought some of the books that they're wanting to put in elementary schools and middle schools, and he actually read them on screen. Now, he couldn't show them because they were graphic, because some of them were teaching kids how to use butt plugs or to give blowjobs. And if you think I'm being sensationalistic, then I dare you, you disgusting red-headed hag, I dare you to call me on it. And we can talk about the type of books that are really trying to be introduced. But first of all, I have no problem with them banning any pride books, any LGBTQ books at all. Because yes, my religion and most religions since the beginning of time have recognized that this is not an alternative lifestyle. This is pure degeneracy. And every civilization since the beginning of time that has embraced and adopted this has been met with just astounding consequences. I mean, we take a look at the world around us. The birth rate epidemic. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter where you look, liberalism has failed. It has failed. It is an anti-human death cult filled with some of the most deranged freaks ever conceived of on the planet. These people are so messed up and so unhinged that they are literally coming before you and convincing themselves and trying to convince you that they are good people because they think that they're on the right side of history by fighting to keep degenerate and in some cases pornographic material in front of your children. And they think that you should not have the right to reject that in its entirety, that you should be forced, that your children should be forced in order to encounter that. My answer to that is no. And anyone who pushes that, peddles that, promotes that, advocates that, for me, that should be a crime. If it isn't already on the books, it should be written as a new law that you are not allowed to promote this stuff to kids. Thankfully, Florida has already done that. Florida had the quote-unquote don't say gay bill. Remember that? Remember how people like this were furious? They were furious that Ron DeSantis said, okay, no LGBTQ in the curriculum from grades kindergarten through third grade. That was the initial push, the initial bill. That was the thing that got Hollywood furious. And I think it was during the Oscars or during the Emmys. I think it was the Oscars. You had a bunch of fat, untalented, quote-unquote comedians, these women like Amy Schumer and Wanda Sykes, I believe it was, who just went on stage and just started saying the word gay. Gay, 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 yeah, gay, gay. You know, just saying it because they thought that, because they're genuinely stupid enough to think that the don't say gay bill was that you couldn't actually just say the word gay. Rather than, we're not introducing LGBTQ curriculum to kids that are prepubescent, that are, in grades that you should be learning about how to spell the word cheese. Like, what are we doing here? This is why they're over 1,000% a far left radical channel.
What's the difference between exposure and coercion? Do rainbow puppies equal radical indoctrination? And what is in Justice Neil Gorsuch's browser history?
That's the one where they are supposed to look for the leather and things and bondage, things like that.
It's not bondage. It's a woman in a leather.
Sex worker, right?
No.
No?
That's not.
Sir, this is a Wendy's?
Lady, you're advocating for introducing sexual material to kids. I don't think you're in any position to be morally lecturing anyone about anything. And by the way, that is a charitable interpretation. You are not only in favor, based on the channel, based on the stated principles, you are in favor of a child who cannot consent to a tattoo, who cannot be allowed to buy a gun. You know, an 8-year-old goes in to buy a gun, not going to happen. Can't drink, can't smoke. There are laws on the books, but they can and should be coerced and, you know, given consent to transition. That's what you believe. You are an insane, despicable, vile person. You are terrible. What you advocate for, what you promote, how you promote it, with this fake smile on your face, you are a witch. Simply put, you're a witch. You think that people of religious faith should not have the right to take their kids out of class when you are pushing an ideology that has nothing to do with learning. It has nothing to do with learning. Sexuality and the school should be far apart. It should be normalized. Normalized is male and female. Those are the only two genders. Those are the only two sexes. Anything else is a mental illness that should be treated with compassion, but it is not legitimate. It is not, there's 10 genders. No, there's not. There's 2. Everyone knows that. What you're promoting is insanity. It's divorce from reality madness. And a lot of older, you know, way over the hill Karens like you push this sort of shit to the detriment of everything and everyone else because you want a virtue signal. It's pathetic. I see through it. And I'm calling you and your entire channel out.
Montgomery County, Maryland is one of the most diverse counties in the nation. It's also one of the most educated and affluent, and its public schools are excellent. For the 2022-23 school year, the Montgomery County Public School System introduced into its pre-K through 12th grade language arts curriculum several storybooks featuring lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer characters. The books were added as part of MCPS's commitment to providing a culturally responsive curriculum that promotes equity, respect, and civility.
That's disgusting. That's bullshit. That should be banned, and thankfully the Supreme Court did. And anyone who is pushing this, by the way, should be arrested and charged with distributing pornographic or sexually explicit materials to minors. They should be arrested. They should be charged, every single one of them. And if anyone comes out and does this again, they too should be arrested. It should be a crime to do what these people are promoting.
It was the affirmative belief of the school board that representation in the curriculum creates and normalizes a fully inclusive environment for all students and supports a student's ability to empathize, connect, and collaborate with diverse peers and encourages respect for all. So when people accuse the school of trying to normalize LGBTQ+ people, they are right. MCPS set out to ensure that all students would be exposed to books about gay and trans people who make up roughly 9% of the U.S. population.
Oh, well, I mean, your statistics are off, but more to the point, you had a school that was pushing LGBTQ curriculum from pre-kindergarten to high school? Just a blanket thing? Wow, it sounds like the parents were right. Sounds like they stepped in and stopped these perverts and these activists from coming in there and introducing this stuff and trying to normalize it. Good on them. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause. Let's give a round of applause to these parents that were willing to risk being vilified. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Good. You did good. You did very good. You stood up against a system that wanted to groom and pervert your kids. Wanted your kids to be subjected to this filth. And by the way, I'm opposed to drag story hour. I'm opposed to pride parades that introduce their filth in front of kids. I think that anyone who walks around naked at a pride parade should be arrested. I think if they're kids, they should be put on the sexual registry as a sex offender. I think that there should be harsher penalties for some of the shit that the LGBTQ does and gets away with it because people like this, the Karentocracy, comes out to defend them. I think the punishment should be severe. I think it should be a long time in prison and your name on that registry if you engage and sexual conduct of any kind in front of a kid.
Gay kids could see themselves represented in stories like Prince and Knight and Love, Violet. Trans kids would see themselves in books like Born Ready and My Rainbow. And everyone could enjoy a fun picture book about a puppy.
By the way, if there is a kid who's trans, that kid is a victim of abuse from their parents. I don't just mean sexual abuse, although that could be likely. But I mean, if you allow your kid to transition, you have abused your kid, and I think that that is the time where the government should take a look for the wellness of the child to see what most likely the woman is doing to radically affect their kid. Because if you're 2 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old, yeah, you're in no position to be doing that. And any parent who affirms that is abusing their kid. And by the way, this whole idea that parents have total and complete control, I think that that's true for most normal Christian ethics that our country was founded on. But when you start getting into the subversive, degenerate, sexual shit, if you start allowing your kid to get a tattoo at the age of 8, or start, having sex with them, or doing anything that the LGBTQ has become infamous for, I think that those parents should be arrested and that kid should be rescued from that environment.
At a pride parade. Initially, the school provided an informal opt-out for parents who objected to the books on religious grounds.
It just hit me who she looks like. Do you know who she looks like? You're not going to believe this. It took me a minute. This woman oh my God, I can't believe I didn't see it sooner. Oh man.
But MCPS says that became unworkable, and many of the parents seeking to opt their children out did not cite a religious objection, but instead expressed their moral opposition to gay marriage or their personal belief that kindergartners were too young to learn about pride.
Both of those are correct, and both of those can be from a religious framework. Absolutely, but even if it wasn't, it's just common sense. They're absolutely correct. And again, anyone defending this has some kind of ulterior motive and agenda, and you should keep them far away from the levers of power and be very, very cautious of those people.
And that's not the same thing. MCPS says that the growing number of opt-out requests gave rise to 3 related concerns: high student absenteeism, the infeasibility of administering opt-outs across classrooms and schools, and the risk of exposing students who believe the storybooks represent them and their families to social stigma and isolation. That is, if your kid who's trans or gay and half your class walks out the day the teacher reads a book about kids like you, it's inherently stigmatizing. And so the school discontinued the opt-out policy.
A win. Good. Yeah, it makes sense. What the hell is the school doing focusing on sexuality? Those books should be banned from the school. I mean, if the parents want to go out and buy the books and they want to introduce it to the kids, I think it's disgusting, but fine. As long as they're not physically touching the kids or doing something sexual and they want to buy these books, fine. But these are, in many cases, taxpayer-funded schools. And they have every right to invoke their rights and say, we don't want this shit at our school. Perfectly reasonable, legitimate, and decent.
In May of 2023, 3 sets of parents sued in the district court in Maryland. They accused the school system of introducing pre-K and elementary school kids to certain books that promote one-sided transgender ideology, encourage gender transitioning, and focus excessively on romantic infatuation. They pointed out that the county provides opt-outs for sex ed and from activities like Christmas carols or Halloween parades if parents object, and they said that stories about pride parades are the same thing. They claimed that the lack of an opt-out violated the First Amendment's free exercise clause, as well as the parents' due process rights under the 14th Amendment. They asked the court to enter a declaratory judgment that refusing to allow parents to opt their kids out of the books violated the First Amendment and Maryland law. And Judge Deborah Boardman said no. She said that Maryland law only provides opt-outs for human sexuality courses, not language arts. But with regard to the constitutional claim, she said the sine qua non of a free exercise claim is coercion, and the plaintiffs have not shown the no opt-out policy likely will result in the indoctrination of their children.
This is why women shouldn't be judges. This is why, I mean, let's take a look at this chick. I know that clip's going to get me canceled. I don't care. Yeah, any woman that looks like this, that's issuing a judgment like this, you can immediately tell that there is something wrong. And this is why these liberal hippie women, these older, bitter, Karentocracy white women, they should not be anywhere near making decisions like these. And the Supreme Court absolutely was right to strike down her decision. What an asinine, ridiculous, politically motivated decision. Thank goodness we have checks and balances. Isn't that right? Isn't that right, Legal Eagle? Aren't you the one that's always bitching about how, oh, it's great that the court can balance Donald Trump? Well, the far-left activist judges that are making insane, batshit, crazy, disgusting decisions, thankfully we have checks and balances on them. Isn't that right?
Language arts. But with regard to the constitutional claim, she said the sine qua non of a free exercise claim is coercion, and the plaintiffs have not shown the no opt-out policy likely will result in the indoctrination of their children or otherwise coerce their children to violate.
Normalizing this filth, normalizing this disgusting, subversive, degenerate ideology, which, by the way, should be viewed with, any sort, the same revulsion that you would get from a pedo walking to a school and opening their jacket in front of a kid. You should keep kids, especially pre-kindergarten, away from any sort of sexual material at all. There is no such thing as a trans youth, and there should be no such thing as a gay or lesbian kid. These are kids that are just learning about the basics of reality. They're learning how to spell and do math. But these hags, these freaks like this Karen here on this channel, is obsessed with sexualizing kids and then defending it. And the others in the Karentocracy, who for some ungodly reason aren't in jail but are on the court system, they decide, well, no, you don't get the right to keep your kids from this filth. Your kids have to see it. Well, my answer would be absolutely not. My answer would be absolutely not. And I commend these parents for not only suing, but disregarding this disgusting batshit, hag who made this ridiculous legal conclusion based on nothing and taking it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Good on them.
Violate or change their religious beliefs. The judge quoted Parker v. Hurley, a 2008 ruling from the First Circuit dismissing a similar claim by parents who objected to their kids reading a book about a family with two mothers. There, the court said public schools are not obliged to shield individual students from ideas which potentially are religiously offensive, particularly when the school imposes no requirement that the student violate his or her faith during classroom instruction. Judge Boardman pointed out that when courts have found free exercise violations based on public school curricula, the challenged curricula involved more than exposure to ideas. The curricula required conduct that conflicted with students' faith, which is a really important distinction, or I guess it was until June of 2025, because until then, no court in this country had ever held that mere exposure to ideas parents disagree with violates the free exercise clause. Now, if the government wants to burden your fundamental constitutional rights, it has to satisfy what's known as strict scrutiny. That is, it has to show that it has a compelling interest in doing so and that the law in question is narrowly tailored to achieve that objective. But when a law does not touch on your fundamental rights, it only has to satisfy rational basis scrutiny, meaning it has to bear a rational relationship to a legitimate government objective. Here, Judge Boardman said the plaintiffs asserted due process rights to direct their children's upbringing by opting out of a public school curriculum that it conflicts with their religious views is not a fundamental right. And
Oh, okay. Well, then that judge should be impeached. She should be removed. That's not the foundation of our country. That's not what we believe. And so that judge should be impeached and removed and possibly deported and convicted of a crime. Now, some people say, oh, you're going a little far. No, I don't think I'm going far enough. The left has done so much damage to this country and our laws and our Constitution and our culture and our framework that we are in a place now where the birth rate crisis has reached epidemic levels. Like, we are beyond the red. We are not even at replacement levels. We have people that are advocating that you should be able to put this subversive, degenerate, disgusting shit in schools and that it should be taxpayer funded and you have no right to take your kids out of it or to request the school not do it. Anything LGBTQ should be banned from every school in the United States, period. Every school, from pre-kindergarten up until high school. It should be removed. It is not normal or equal to a heterosexual productive relationship. Anyone who is pushing this sort of filth should be, under the law, treated in the same way that people trying to expose kids to harmful ideas should be treated. In the same way that it is against the law to go and buy alcohol for somebody under the age of 21, it should be illegal to push this sexual shit in front of kids who are under the age of 18.
so the MCPS policy only had to satisfy rational basis scrutiny. The school board has a legitimate interest in fostering social integration and cultural inclusiveness of transgender and gender nonconforming students by ensuring all MCPS students are exposed to inclusive and representative instructional materials. And the school has a legitimate interest in preventing students who identify with characters in the storybooks from feeling stigmatized or discriminated against when other students leave the room when the books are read. And so, Judge Boardman rejected the parents' claim, and the Fourth Circuit agreed. Like the trial court, the majority on the appeals court emphasized that mere exposure to ideas is definitionally not coercive. Exposure to objectionable material alone will not ordinarily pose a burden on an individual's free exercise of religion because it lacks the requisite compulsion or pressure on an individual's religious beliefs or conduct. Instead, claims based on exposure tend to fall outside the scope of the free exercise clause because they seek to require the government to conduct its own internal affairs, here public school curriculum choices, in ways that comport with the religious beliefs of particular citizens. Now, when you're talking about hot button legal issues,
so we're gonna skip from the ad. And by the way, Ground News, you need to really rethink the type of people that you do business with, because if you're promoting on Legal Eagles channel, that's gonna guarantee that there is no chance in hell that I would ever use your platform. Your platform could be great, it could be the best in the world, but I mean, holy shit. But anyway, let's fast forward ahead.
could use to exempt themselves from generally applicable laws. And we know that because in 1982, an Amish plaintiff argued that it violated his religious faith to pay into Social Security, and the Supreme Court unanimously rebuffed him. That opinion...
That's not at all the same. And I guess when you don't have the argument, you just make shit up. Let's see if we can't get to this.
That era is over. On April 22nd, Mahmoud v. Taylor was argued at the Supreme Court, and it was very clear from the first moments that the conservative justices were going to give the plaintiffs what they wanted.
Yeah, and one final factor that may distinguish this particular case from some of the others that you have been asked to express a view about, and you did touch on this, is the fact that it concerns sex and gender, and that the Maryland legislature itself has recognized these subjects raise special concerns and has provided for an opt-out from the health classes where these matters are discussed.
That's right, and currently in Montgomery County you can opt out from the very same instruction during health class, but then you're required to stay during story time.
That was Justice Sam Alito in colloquy with Eric Baxter, the lawyer.
That seems pretty reasonable. to make that argument that, hey, okay, in this thing you can opt out, but in this you can't. And of course, the Legal Eagle, quote unquote, law team are looking at this going, well, no, that's completely different. See, you should have to be exposed and indoctrinated to the idea of same-sex couples and transitioning children and LGBTQ everything. Because in their warped, demented, delusional worldview, that's the same. It's just as equal as a heterosexual, normal, nuclear family relationship. And that is why people like this, who make videos like this, should be constantly exposed, not physically. Don't want to make any of you gag, but I'm talking about their ideas should be exposed, and they should be rebuffed, and people like her should be humiliated. Because at the end of the day, this hag, this Karen, is going out there and trying to frame her argument as though it's the noble position, it's the legally correct position, it's the morally correct position, and it's none of those. Taxpayers have the right to say, I don't want my kids looking at this degenerate filth that is obviously connected to sexuality and groomers and pedophiles. This is a purely sexualized ideology. Anything LGBTQ is by its very nature sexual. That's what it is. And so every parent should have the right to say, get this crap out of our school. And they're right to do so. And anyone defending it, I'm going to look at suspiciously, because why are you so obsessed with sexualizing kids? Why are you so obsessed with kids being subjected to this? And the thing is, I criticize Trump about the Epstein files. I want the people who were pedophiles, whether they be left or whether they be right, to face prison time, to face severe consequences. Whether they be a CEO or some, business magnate or a leader of a country, I want them to be exposed on this. But it seems like there's a lot of people on the left that are very, very, very touchy about this, and they want to couch everything in this like altruism, but it's not. You are trying to harm kids with this. This is not a beneficial ideology in any way, shape, matter, or form, and this does more harm than it does good. Children should be learning trades. They should be learning to read and write. Learning a trade, it's like, what do you like to work with as a kid? You like to work with, wood? You like to work with metal? Maybe at that age you can't do like in-depth shop. But you could still do little fun projects. You could still build things with a tooth, what do you call it, the toothpicks, or build things with the popsicle sticks, or if you like metal, maybe there's something you can do with connects or something. There are ways to get kids involved in this stuff and to teach them things that actually matter, but these people are only focused on the sexualizing of kids and trying to come up with an excuse for why it's not bad. Why it's not bad? Why it's not bad? No, I'm a good guy. I'm a good person. I'm fighting for rights. You're fighting against rights. You're fighting against the rights of the religious in a Christian nation. You're fighting to allow this degenerate filth, this smut, to be introduced to kids. That's what you're doing. And that's why people despise the ideology.
For the parents. The justice suggests that because the county allows parents to opt out of sex ed, it must also allow parents to opt their kids out of the inclusive curricular readings in language arts. But baked into that question is the assumption that any book with an LGBTQ plus character is a book about sex, including Pride Puppy.
It is. It is. 100%. 100%. By the way, none of this is normal. Pride Puppy? None of this stuff is normal. This should be banned. No school in the United States should have any of this filth. And the people pushing it should be behind bars.
a book featuring a dog in a rainbow bandana who goes with his family to the Pride Parade and gets lost and eats ice cream and then gets found. That's the book that Justice Gorsuch pretended was about bondage and leather. Oh my God! Pride Puppy is an alphabet book where every page has a letter. A is for awake, animals and all. B is for breakfast, baby and ball. At the end of the book, it has like a glossary with a search and find word list for all the letters. There is no B for bondage or S for sex worker.
Well, yeah, those are in the other books. Tim Pool has gone over all of that. Yeah, there are books that introduce that stuff and teaching kids how to do blowjobs and use butt plugs. Yeah, but this sort of stuff, anything having to do with LGBTQ and kids should be banned immediately. And the people who make the stuff should be investigated and arrested.
The closest is you for underwear, because a little boy is wearing his underpants on the outside of his clothes, which I can guarantee you every kid in kindergarten noticed and laughed uproariously at, because when you're 5, that's hilarious. It's also not about sex at all. Nor is the book Intersection Allies, We Make Room for All, which is about a group of girls from diverse backgrounds who stick up for each other. One is in a wheelchair, one wears a hijab, one is a black girl who goes to Black Lives Matter protests.
Are you fucking serious? You demented old bint? You demented old bint. You've got a young black girl standing in front of police wearing face shields. For her, for them, for him, and for me, we all deserve to breathe and be free. Anyone who promotes this book should be in jail. Actually, I'll go a step further. Anyone who promotes a book like this with this sort of vile crap should be deported from the United States. Because you are trying to introduce this sort of shit to kids. That is evil. That is grooming. That is indoctrination. And it should be criminal. And if we don't have a law in the books for it, we should. We can change that. Trump can do an executive order. All right, guys. All right. I know you're mad at me about Epstein. I know you're mad at me. But you know what I'm going to do? We're going to start throwing these predators and other people from the left in jail for trying to indoctrinate kids with Black Lives Matter propaganda, left-wing propaganda. We're going to start throwing them in jail. I'll be like, Mr. President, you fucked up on Epstein, but at the very least, you're doing some good. The fact that she presented this, thinking this was going to be a win for her cause, is shocking. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go watch the rest of the video, you definitely can. There's another 10 or so minutes of it. I'm not going to waste my time on it. You get the general picture. This woman is just making excuses for why the Supreme Court has made the right decision several times since Trump has been elected. And thankfully, books like that are never going to be seen in public schools again if normal, sane people have their way. It should be considered incredibly disgusting to put anything like that in front of children. It's obvious left-wing indoctrination, and it should be opposed with every fiber of your being, and you don't hate the people who promote this stuff enough. You just don't. Because they're going after kids and then trying to convince you that there's nothing wrong with that. Whether it's a judge or an old hag on the Legal Eagle channel or whoever it may be in politics, stop preying on children. All right? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I appreciate the support of the channel. It's amazing. I'll see you next time.